Welcome to Off the Shelf, where we take you on the most spectacular adventures, talk about salacious romances, dive deep into the latest true crime, and break down the most anticipated memoirs. Hey y'all, welcome back to Off the Shelf. I'm Carrie Martin Lashney, and today I am joined by co-authors, writing duo, husband and wife, Emily Wibberley and Austin Siegemund-Broka. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing their latest novel, Do I Know You? Emily and Austin, welcome to Off the Shelf.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. We're thrilled to be here.
Oh my gosh, thank y'all so much for being here. So, two disclaimers. One, for any viewer watching, please pause this. There will be spoilers. So if you have not read Do I Know You just yet, go and read it right now. Run. It is such a page turner, an incredible book. You're going to absolutely love it, and then come back. But secondly, honestly, I just wanted to share, thank you so much for this storyline. I think you touched on a topic that can feel so defeating in relationships. And I just wanted to say thank you because you really gave it hope and levity and made it fun. I don't want to get too into it because I know we're going to break it down in just a moment, but I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
That means so much.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get right into it. How did y'all meet?
How did we meet? We met in high school.
High school sweethearts.
Maybe middle school. We have proof that we met in middle school, but we don't remember it. Didn't leave a lasting impression, clearly. But
we became friends in chemistry class, so it's convenient to say we had chemistry, and that's how our relationship truly started. That's a bit of writerly cleverness for you. But we were best friends for years before we started dating in our senior year of high school. And then we did long distance for 4 years of college, and then we moved back together here in LA. And you know, we've been together ever since. It's been 15 years or something.
Is it really?
Okay. So that is so funny. Similar to my husband and I's story, we met in the 6th grade. However, we did not have chemistry at first. I like to use the word loathed each other. Very much so. We started dating in high school.
Wow.
College, then we separated. I had moved to LA for acting, and we separated for about 6 years.
Oh my God, a second chance romance.
Yeah.
Friendly. He was my best friend growing up. So we remained friendly and reconnected, and here we are.
You're all the tropes put together.
I love that.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. No, so that is so sweet. I absolutely love that. When did y'all decide to become writing partners?
That was pretty late into, considering when we started dating, we didn't even know what we wanted to do. You know, we were in high school. And it wasn't until after college, we both liked stories growing up. And it was something we definitely talked about a lot, not in terms of oh, I'm going to be a writer one day, but just oh, I read this book or we watched this movie. It was always a part of our relationship, just talking about things like this. And then after college, I have always loved young adult novels. And so I wanted to write a young adult novel, and I was bouncing ideas off of Austin, and he was very helpful. And he was kind of he would read things and give me feedback, and I would brainstorm with him. And then at one point I was well, why don't you just join up?
And this was the request I'd been waiting for. I was thrilled because, as Emily says, this is something we had been sharing for our entire relationship for half a decade before I got this proposal. This question popped to me. And so the opportunity to make that real, it just felt like continuing conversations that we were already having about all the ways in which what we were reading or watching was engaging and thrilling to us. And so it came very naturally out of the relationship that we already had.
I love that so much. And I'm going to jump a question. How do you decide who writes which part? Or is this a very cohesive relationship?
It's very cohesive. We, writing like baseball, it's not one skill, it's a lot of skills. And so there's the ideation part, and there's the outlining part, and then there's the, putting words on the page part, and there's the editing part. And among those, some of us, one or the other of us takes more of one part than the other. But on the whole, we come up with all our ideas together. We develop main strokes of plot together. And when we're writing, we mostly do it sitting together in one room, literally speaking the sentences out loud to each other and discussing which ones should go in and why. So It's very collaborative. It's very fractious. Lots of fighting happens in this process. It's a constant compromise. All the conversations that you might be having in your head as a writer, we have out loud. And so there's a lot of discord, a lot of discussion. But as far as deciding what goes in, we compromise, which means Emily wins 2/3 of the time.
Yes, that is correct. That's a good man. That is so interesting because Nicole and I were discussing how it is so like it is so seamless. Y'all's writing is so seamless, and I was like, I don't know who wrote which part, and it's like you can, just looking at it, for face value, be like, oh, Austin wrote, this part in this part, but it was so seamless that I was like, I don't know. That is so incredibly interesting. And I feel like what a strong relationship you almost have to like continue this though, right? Because like if it didn't break you the first time, then like,
it definitely,
it's like our 8th book.
We do know ourselves this far into it. We've been doing it for so long that like if we are having like if it has been a long day, it's like, you know what, maybe tonight we should write separately. Like most of the time we write together, but like if you are going into it exhausted, like it is just going to be fight after fight after fight. So we're just like, let's just one person do the rough draft, one person do the polished draft, but most of the time we're sitting here in this office. And
we don't particularly discriminate who has what perspective. We sort of reality check each other based on the male character or the female character, but for the most part, we are coming up with the voice of each one together and sort of playing it more like we are acting as a character.
That is absolutely incredible. Okay, so briefly tell us about like what Do I Know You is about.
Sure. So it's about a married couple heading into their 5th anniversary vacation and privately struggling with having lost the spark. And as they arrive at this beautiful hotel that they've been gifted a week-long stay at for this anniversary trip, due to a series of misunderstandings and mix-ups, they decide that the way they might be able to restore some vigor and some novelty to their relationship is by pretending they are strangers meeting for the first time on vacation. They do so for the week. They learn to date their spouse and to fall in love all over again with the person who they go to sleep with every night.
This story was absolutely so incredibly fun. And did this storyline and the effort to create it bring newfound curiosity to your own relationship, or was this fully fictional?
Well, so it's actually, whenever we write a book, we don't necessarily say like, oh, we're gonna like put this part of our relationship into the book or whatever. But then you get into it and you kind of realize that like you maybe have done so unconsciously. And so for us, we do this every time we write a book. We kind of like are taking on these personas while we're in our office writing together, like having these two characters fall in love while we are like kind of embodying them. Yeah. And so it feels like we do this. We've done this 8 times over. And so in this book, we kind of took that process that we do in our office and made it, much more of an external, here we're doing it in the world.
I think there are love notes to each other sprinkled throughout it that I know I have tried to remember through and since the writing process of asking the same questions and making time for the same joys that delighted you 6 months into the relationship. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. The book itself is so therapeutic. It's sexy, it's fun, but it's so incredibly honest. And as we're discussing right now, which I think you'll have, nobody is perfect in this area, but you'll have a very strong foundation in. Communication is such a strong topic. And we see what the lack of communication does to Eliza and Graham's relationship. In that regard, what made you decide to focus on that? And did you write multiple concepts around it? Was this storyline like, this is it, let's go, it's going to be fun and different? What was your take when starting this book?
We kind of always had this vision that it was going to be people pretending, like kind of role playing a whole week together. And like this new twist, it's like fake dating for like a married couple, like they are pretending.
Right. It's fake the opposite direction.
Yeah, it's the opposite direction. And I will say originally we had conceived of that they were much more like fractious, that they really were at kind of a breaking point and like they were a little bit like angstier and meaner to each other. And we were writing this like at the beginning of the pandemic.
Right.
And our editor was like, you know what, the pandemic is like doing a lot on people's marriages. Let's make sure it's more like uplift, like it was always going to be uplifting. We didn't want to start in such a dark place. We wanted not to reflect like maybe what people were really going through at that time. So we kept it more of like, they know they love each other, but they've just lost their way to each other right now, and they need to find it.
And that, you know, from the very outset, that was the concept that we wanted to write something around, a romance between a married couple. It's something that we felt we hadn't seen a whole lot of in the genre. There is you know, a marriage and trouble subgenre and trope with a lot of great examples, but not that many compared to the whole sweep of the romance genre. And so we wanted to write our own, you know, realistic but fun take on that. And as Em says, the pandemic was just sort of an extra motivation for something that we felt like already, you know, we wanted a story of characters who were accessible and relatable to many romance readers who are themselves married and in long-term committed relationships. Then we were stricken with a world event that pushed people into proximity, into confinement, into really having to deal with even, you know, mundane things like boredom. And so it became an extra motivation for the story of people kind of reckoning with togetherness in that way.
You know, I love that your editor said that, because as an actress myself and a producer, I have been more focused on uplifting stories because, and you know, even before the pandemic, and I think the pandemic really created that shift, but prior to, you know, we're in genres that are incredibly dark, like such incredible shows out there, right? But very dark, very angsty, very moody, where you're like, oh no, I hope this, you know, this generation doesn't think that this is all it is, right?
Yeah.
That there is hope in situations. So I was incredibly drawn to this book. Like I said, the way that y'all wrote it, the way that y'all delivered this topic, because even in such what, you know, it wasn't, you know, they weren't so angry, but you could feel how desperate Eliza was. Whereas Graham, we didn't see that till a little bit later when, you know, when he's kind of admitting to his troubles, but you could definitely feel like she was like, this is it, you know? And I think so many couples can relate to the fact that they're like, I don't know what else to do. And the key to it is to pause and communicate, you know, like speak those emotions. And that's not very easy. It can be a very uncomfortable situation. You know, I can relate to that in my own marriage. My husband is very introverted. I am very introverted. So it's kind of been like pulling him out. And, you know, we're 3 years in, you know, pretty much newlyweds here, but I can definitely relate. And this was a book that as I was sitting in bed, I'd be like giggling and I was like, I think we need to try this.
Good.
Like,
the ultimate compliment.
I honestly like always fall like, you know, like dive deep into stories when I'm reading them. So he's like, oh, what world are you in today? So this is definitely something where I'm like, I think we should try.
I love that.
Well, I mean, we do want it to be fun. Like it is serious, and it comes from this like very real crossroads that we wanted to address, but we wanted to make sure we did it in a way that was like genuinely fun and that readers would think, wow, that would be fun. I would love to do that.
Yeah. Do y'all, I mean, you know, this is, you can say, you know, yes or no. Do you have any pointers as somebody, as individuals who go through, you know, share this world, you know what I mean? Like have to communicate hardcore in order to get these stories told, and therefore, and also stay in this strong, committed relationship. Do you have pointers that you might have used in this story that you think are beneficial to couples today?
And we definitely, the line about having, you have to continue to date each other. Like we really wanted to put that in there. And we feel that, you know, that's why we wanted to write this book, because we ourselves as authors, we found ourselves, we don't tend to gravitate to writing characters who have like just met someone and fall in love, because that doesn't, it's been like 15 years since we did that, you know, like that doesn't hold a lot of personal connection for us anymore. It was something we did earlier on in our career because it was like
we were closer
to it. Now we like these characters who have a lot of history together, and we find that there's just so much that there's so much to unpack there and so much to play with. And I think that in real life, it's like, love stories don't just have to look like the kind that it's like you meet someone in a coffee shop and you fall in love with them. It can look like this. It can look a little bit messier and have these pieces to it that there's still a way through it.
Yeah, I think the emphasis that we placed on that and the way that they both, in the superstructure of the game, but also just like the more intimate, the more basic details, is people seem to think sometimes that like work and effort are the same thing, and they're not. Your relationship shouldn't be work, but it absolutely should and can be effort. And if you're applying effort, that's the same as applying it to your favorite sport or your favorite video game or your favorite recipe that you're cooking. And so coming to something from a place of joy is not opposite to coming to it from a place of, I'm going to try to be the best me I can be and do the things that I once did that made this good. And that effort is actually positive.
That is so, wow, that is so good. It doesn't have to be work, but it does have to be effort. That's fantastic. That's such a great perspective. I guess you kind of touched on this. What compelled you? Well, let's go from the beginning. When you were talking about this book and this, this story, what compelled y'all to tell it now? I know you said it shifted ever so slightly with the pandemic and with that need, right? That hope that people needed. But where did this start from? What compelled you to tell it?
Honestly, we were just in our house writing, like the beginning of the pandemic was when we wrote our first adult romance, Roughest Draft. And we just sat in this room every day and we wrote a book together, and we didn't see other people, it was that early time. We just like weren't doing that much. And you want to do something different. You want to break the mold. And so this book was kind of like this way to do that for us. Was like, okay, if we're not writing this book every day, we are at our favorite resort in Northern California. And we, it's kind of an escape for us personally.
Yeah. And, as Em says, the other foundational motivation was just the fact that we are now like very much into our marriage and our relationship. We're not like at the outset of this thing anymore. And the gamble you make when you create anything is saying to yourself, if I like this thing, that probably means that other people in the world will care about this thing. And for us, it was a story about folks who were dealing with the complexities and the challenges and also the love and the fun of marriage. And that's our headspace. That's what we're thinking about. That's what we're caring about. And so we kind of, the form that gamble took, in the creative process here was saying, there's probably other people who are looking for that story, because we certainly are.
Yeah, you definitely touched on the for better or for worse aspect of this. I saw some readers mention that a lot, and I thought that was so compelling because, in this industry, in the industry I work in, it's very easy to just say, we're done trying, you know what I mean? And behind the scenes, these individuals very much could have tried very hard, but it is so just admirable and that it's possible to fight for it, you know what I mean? And change the tactic that you're going to use to keep that marriage strong and to keep dating, to keep the spark alive. So I absolutely love that y'all dare to write this and do something different and break the mold, like you said, because I've never read something like this, and I feel like I've read a ton of books. So this is very exciting, especially at the point of life that I'm in right now. But I still think it is incredibly relatable to relationships in general, because that's what is key, is communication. And I think we forget. I know it's not simple, but in hindsight, it's simple. Just speak to each other.
But it's hard.
It's hard.
It's really hard
to be egoless.
And we that's why we always have them. Like, it's sometimes easier to communicate through like art. Like sometimes it's harder to like just be vulnerable and just say something. But if you want to like create a character, a persona, a role-playing persona, or like writing, like we communicate in our books, or like I'm sure you communicate in your acting. Like it's like you can put a piece of yourself for the world to see in a way that is still vulnerable, but a little less vulnerable than just like walking out and making an announcement like, hey, here's how I'm feeling today. Like, and so that is like in this role playing, it's like they can kind of like float things to each other and like see how it's going to go over, and it gets the confidence to maybe have that real conversation later.
You know, you just touched on something that I haven't thought about in years. My husband is so musically inclined. And I remember in college, we were, in, one of our immature discussions, arguments, have you. And in order to communicate appropriately to him, because I was like, I don't know how to say what I want to say anymore and have it received well, I wrote down lyrics to a song that I was like, this is speaking exactly like he had heard it. I haven't thought about that in years, but it's so true. Like communication just happens in such different forms. And that's how he was able to receive that and understand what I was trying to say, which is crazy thinking of that years later.
Yeah.
Okay. This is something, and like y'all talking, give me butterflies. Do you give yourself butterflies when you're writing and when you're reading each other's words? Because you give us all butterflies, and I've always thought that was so interesting.
I think we definitely.
The answer is yes.
Especially when we read something the other person has done without like if I read something Austin's written, I'm like, oh damn, that was really good. And
absolutely. When we get to really great lines, I mean, it's similar to reactions that anybody might have speaking to somebody who says something that's meaningful to them. It's like, wow, that really came through. It's really beautiful that you feel that way. And I'm and like Emily was saying, I'm proud to know and be with somebody who is so wise and has that much like to say.
We are each other's like biggest critics, but we're also each other's biggest fans. So we wouldn't be writing together if we didn't like really love what the other person can do. And so it does. You sit back and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, that's kind of cool. It's going to go in my book. I didn't write that.
Well, I know we discussed very briefly that you kind of sort of end up putting these experiments to the test as you're writing because of the method that you write in. Do you think this is something, I mean, I think it is, right? But in your opinion, do you think it's something that other couples should try to bring the spark back? Like, what is your opinion? I mean, you wrote it, but what is your, human opinion about that in the real world?
Honestly, yes.
Sure, yeah.
I wasn't. We're not trying to peddle false goods here. Like, sincerely, like I think that would genuinely be fun.
And
it is fun.
It doesn't have to be so involved with the way Eliza and Graham do it. Just like, I don't know, telling each other a story at the dinner table can be funny. It can be fun, and you can like, it's something, you create this drama, and it's some fun thing to do together. And sometimes it turns into entire books that you write together, but it doesn't have to be that.
Or it's something else that feels equally like wacky and unlikely to you. Like we wanted it clear in some of the opening scenes that the characters weren't just like going along with this because it was the plot. And like to have moments where they were like, this is silly. This is a crazy thing we're doing, right? And they're like, yeah, let's do it anyway. You know? So whatever that thing is for people, like they should absolutely pursue it. We're very pro that.
Yeah. And we did see Graham's hesitation in it, where he was like, is this gonna be enough for her when we come out of this?
Sure.
And I feel like that is such a powerful question, because in relationships, especially when you're in them for a minute, you wonder like, am I still enough? Am I still fun? Does my partner still find me sexy and love me? You know what I mean? Like you question things, of course. And if you were, I don't think we'd be human if we didn't. But I love that he was the one that questioned it. Because no offense, Austin, but we gave the women a little power here.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I did love it.
Yeah. So we wanted to show that, guys have as many insecurities. Especially in romance, we don't tend to get a ton of insecure male leads. And so we wanted to show that like it can, men can be insecure and it can still be attractive. It can still be this like nice quality of him. And it's not just like this thing where you just need to always be, alpha material.
Yes. Oh, I agree with that 100%. He became so much sexier as a character, sharing his emotions, sharing his heart, being vulnerable. Like I said, as an actor, I am around very vulnerable men all the time. And I come home to a very alpha type male. But we are definitely in a place in our marriage where like when he says his emotions, I'm like, and he's like, and I'm like, no, tell me more, please. Like, this is incredible. Did y'all have, obviously, we ended with something positive, hopeful, where we're like, I hope this this stays, you know, but did y'all have an alternate ending? And I wanted to ask too, would y'all do a sequel to this?
We had never had an alternate ending. It was always going to end this way. And, you know, we, in our mind, it's like they go off and they keep these kind of personas alive for like the rest of their lives. And they always go out and kind of do this tradition.
Yeah.
As for a sequel, I don't know.
I'm always like pro sequel in an abstract sense. It's not something we've thought about, but I would love any opportunity to continue this story.
We get a lot of people asking for like David's book,
right? For spin-off,
like to see David like fall in love again.
Yes, Justin.
But I don't know. Anything is possible.
Anything is possible, and anything would be fun. There's definitely
open-endedness. It was almost like a fun self-help, because I can't do self-help books.
Right.
I'm like, I don't understand this. Like, I feel like this is a lot of work, and this just felt effortless and like something that could be put to the test in a relationship. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, so tell me more. What's your next piece of advice? What do you hope readers get out of Do I Know You?
I hope that they see that romance continues after I do, that it is not, the destination is not the altar. You know, there are more destinations to reach. There are, the best part of your romance isn't behind you at that point. It's really not. And that you can just, there are still things to daydream and fantasize about even years into your marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. And just sort of alluding to what I said before, that continuing to think about ways to make it good and keep it good and make it better and make yourself better, like isn't a chore, and it isn't a flaw in you. It's a gift. It's what you're going for.
That is so good. That is so good. Okay, so we have a few rapid fire questions. Fun, simple, exciting. All right, here we go. What was your first job?
I worked for a nonprofit that raised money using celebrities for charity.
I was a journalist. I was an entertainment reporter.
Okay, in high school, I worked in a snowball stand. I'm from the South, so that's more exciting.
A snowball stand? No.
Okay.
That's great.
What movie do you enjoy quoting the most?
21 Jump Street.
Oh, okay.
What do I quote the most?
You quote Buffy a lot.
I quote Buffy, a TV show.
TV show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. TV show. That's fair. My husband and I quote 4 Christmases with
nice.
And we quote that one a lot.
That's awesome. That's very specific.
Yeah, he's a big comedy guy. All right, finish the phrase. The way to my heart is.
I mean, through books.
Coffee.
What was yours?
Books.
Austin?
Coffee.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say food.
So here we are.
We love eating. What is your favorite? Who is your favorite type of musical artist?
I mean, Taylor Swift.
Oh, okay.
Gotta say.
I listen to a lot of death metal.
Oh, very different.
No containing multitudes over here.
Currently Ed Sheeran. Love his vibe. Okay. Who is your hero?
Oh gosh.
If you need more than one, go for it. Oh,
I pick Emily.
Yeah, we are inspired by each other.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, I guess that makes me feel like I have to pick my husband. I will say
He's not here. It's okay.
I don't know. I would say my parents. They come from a different country, and they really did it and gave us that hope, you know what I mean, of life, kind of like the hope that I hope to bring in the projects that I tell and the stories that I tell. So I would have to say them. All right, we've got 2 more. Who is your favorite author? You cannot say each other.
I really love Taylor Jenkins Reid.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, I would probably say Shakespeare, like up in the echelon, but other than that, I would also say TJR.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Did y'all watch Daisy Jones and the Six?
Of course. And After I Do was very inspirational for Do I Know You. It was kind of an important one.
Okay, yeah, I love that. I mean, God, I love y'all. I love y'all. I cannot wait to read everything that y'all said. But I will say, I just finished reading Four Winds by Kristen Hanna, and I was blown away.
Beautiful.
So she's a newer one,
Nice.
one.
Cool.
And what is your favorite book?
Oh my goodness. I gotta look at all my books.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we just said, but probably Daisy Jones and the Six.
Okay.
I do love the book.
I typically go with Anna Karenina. That informs a
Oh.
lot of the way I approach writing.
Ooh, that's strong. I think Four Winds right now, because I just finished reading it.
Yeah.
Probably at the top, just because it was so different. I'm such a rom-com girl. So
Yeah.
this book is
look this
right up
up.
my alley. I will read it all the time. But Four Winds was very different and almost historically accurate. So that was pretty cool.
Cool.
Not something I normally read. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for being
Thank
here. This
you.
was so incredible. Thank you so much for giving of your time and for writing this incredible book, Do I Know You? I cannot wait to read your next one. I know you have one coming out very soon. Y'all are just out. Can y'all give us a little teaser on what it's about?
Yeah, absolutely. We're super excited. Our next adult romance is called The Breakup Tour. It is our Taylor Swift inspired romance about a songwriter touring her hit breakup song, written about a guy who she dated and lost touch with 10 years ago in college, who ends up on her tour as a touring musician, playing that song together and finding again the harmonies of their romance.
Oh my God.
That's early next year. It's for the Swifties, a fandom of which we call ourselves proud members.
Yeah, of course. What perfect timing. Oh my gosh, we cannot wait to read that. Thank you again for being here with us. Guys, check out Do I Know You? Check out this new book. Get it on pre-order as soon as it is available. But thank you again for being with us on Off the Shelf.